The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Jim Peters at Night. In the middle, Larry Newman. On the right side, Tim Conaway, which you have a Larry Newman sandwich. I just amused myself. All right, so Don ZORRO is coming. He sent me an email. He'll be here in just a moment. So the debate's over, and I gotta admit, I didn't even want to watch it. I'm tired. I'm done with this. But would you guys have any thoughts? I'll give you my thought here. And that is, Tim Walz did amazingly well because of the expectations were so low. I think he will be declared the winner, even though I think it was basically a toss-up. And JD Vance is smart as fuck, man. I'm just really impressed by the guy. I mean, I always knew he was smart. I knew that, but still, it was like just I thought it was quite impressive. But and also, it was, of course, the girls at CBS had to leave the January 6th thing till the very end. Of course they did, because then they knew people would remember it. So anyway, my thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Walz did well, but I mean the whole promotion that he was scared and he was nervous, and I mean that was to paint him to low expectations.
Yeah, that's right.
Which he exceeded, right. And yeah. You're right, and that's going to give the mainstream media their opportunity to declare him the winner.
Right.
I thought Vance was extremely well. He was prepared. He was. You have to remember, you're looking at a vice presidential candidate who. Depending on the emergency, could be the next president. So I think JD Vance did very well tonight.
Yeah. Jim, are you in your bathtub then?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say that I feel greater than anyone's ever felt great. There's never been any great feeling like it in the history of great feelings. And on day one...
do you feel joy, Tim?
Yeah. And on day one, the air will be cleaner, the grass will be greener, we'll cure cancer, and babies will stop crying. In terms of the debate, I had the good fortune to have a Lions Club meeting this evening. So I was there enjoying myself and the good fellowship, and not subjected to the debate except for the last little bit. And I kept thinking, one thing that Donald Trump has said in the past few months that's actually true is nobody votes for the vice president. They don't really care who it is. And after watching what I watched, I felt the same way. These guys were...
Did you have to watch this to come to that conclusion?
Well, no, I just kept thinking, yeah, well, they're not saying anything. They can't do anything. They're blaming Kamala Harris for a lot of shit. She got, they got some stuff dumped on her. Every vice president gets some token program or project or something dumped on them, like they're going to do something. They have no power. They're sitting there just in case something bad happens. And so I don't really care. The part I missed, I don't care. The part I caught, I still don't care.
Yeah. So they get to live in the Naval Observatory, though. It's a nice house.
Is it, or is it like 250 years old with plumbing and electric?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Uh, did you guys think that the moderation was biased at all? There was a couple of
Sure.
times where I thought the ladies were completely, in the tank for Walz but there was also one time where they muted his mic too. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, sure they were. I mean, you could see it all throughout the debate. They were in the tank for Walz from the get-go. And that's what impressed me about JD Vance was he was smart enough and smooth enough to be able to thwart those criticisms and advances on that. So he
welcome Don
very
Zorro.
much
Hello, Don.
impressed me.
Huh.
And to
Go ahead.
Tim's point,
Go ahead, Larry.
I think the vice president has as much or as little impact on the presidential day-to-day presidential decisions as they're allowed to give, and so that's a little bit of that. What scares me is that it is what she wants to do that she hasn't got to do yet. So that really scares me.
Well, Tim alluded to this, and Don. So Don, since you haven't spoken yet, I'll just put this to you. I thought that Tim Walz's closing statement was actually, terrible. He's talking about joy. He's talking about optimism. They don't say anything.
I think that he forgets that he supposedly, was a teacher in school, and he sounded more like the student. My man got schooled tonight. I got to say, one of the differences, one of the things, hey, Tim, one of the things that Tim was saying was that, nobody really votes for vice president.
Yeah.
Since this was one of the most well-heeled debates I think that I have seen, it was like an actual debate. There's been a new paradigm that's been set. I'm trying to think back to times when there were vice presidential debates that were close to what happened tonight. I think that the Democrats choose their vice president based on what it can garner for them in votes, what boxes they check. I'll say that not all the time, because I guess we both sides do it fine. But tonight, it was very, very clear that Vance was chosen because he's got some serious chops.
Yes.
Walz was not chosen because he's got chops. He was very clearly brought on to get a certain demographic. Had Trump wanted to go completely by demographic that would have helped him, he would have gone with my girl Tulsi. He didn't, and I was disappointed. But I have to say that this matchup tonight, I think, just left Walz on the floor babbling. I think that there was probably more attention to this one than most vice presidential debates have happened. I think people are going to be talking about this. Listen, it took about 45 minutes, and I was kind of going back and forth on Twitter and just kind of watching the memes go up. It was savage, and not just a small clump of people. I'm talking like thousands, and the memes that went up were absolutely hilarious. And the principal meme that was going on basically was Vance kind of looking at the camera with his head cocked, like, We got this.
Oh
in
yeah,
the bag,
I caught
folks.
that.
It's pretty funny. People were all
And he's got his head cocked and he's looking at the camera.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
That one.
are
that
you gonna?
one.
It's like
And then there are a
are you
whole
gonna buy
bunch of
this
little
shit?
variations. There are a bunch of variations to go on. But so I'm going to start off the show by disagreeing with Brother Tim and just say that unlike most, um, unlike most vice presidential debates, I think that this one will be more consequential than the ones that we have seen in years past with candidates past.
Well,
I think
You're saying that there have been other vice presidential debates in the past?
they have occurred. You know which one you missed? You missed a great one when Perot brought on Stockdale to
Oh yeah,
to
yeah.
debate. That
What am I
was
doing here?
that was epic. Who am I? What am I doing? And he was asked a question.
But Don, I
forgot what it-
have to stop you. You missed the very beginning of the show, and I said that I think the media will name Walz the winner only because the expectations for him were so godly low.
Yeah. Listen, Zorro's dog has to be let out. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right. Did you name your dog Larry Newman?
Yeah,
He's a pit bull. He's a Rottweiler, Larry.
yeah. I think people may have tuned in tonight because the everyone knows, and it's not talked about, but everyone knows that Donald Trump will have 4 years, and then we're going to be looking for someone else.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people tuned in tonight to see just how good JD Vance was,
Yeah.
and I think they were impressed.
I was
think
extremely impressed.
Yeah. Now, he did the job of carrying the
absolutely
water.
was.
Oh, say again, Don?
No, I knew he was going to do well, especially against Walz, who came off. You remember Petticoat Junction?
Yeah.
Remember old
Yeah.
Uncle Joe? That's who this guy reminded me of. All
my
the way through, just
God.
kind of this bumbling kind of
What
guy.
was the name of the
spouting-
uncle?
Every once in a while, there might
Joe.
be like a pearl of wisdom that happened completely by accident. But here's Uncle Joe.
believe it, you
He's a
said
moving
that.
kind of slow at the junction.
Petticoat Junction.
Yeah.
Oh my
So-
God! I never thought of that. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I find myself really hesitant to talk about this and to criticize the governor of Minnesota, where all three of you live and
That's
reside.
okay. We all do it.
Yeah. Back to, and I think Don made a good point. And most presidential candidates pick the person that's going to help them the most. And everybody knows that Pennsylvania is extremely critical for this election, and Minnesota has nearly always gone to the Democrats. So why did she pick Tim Walz instead of the governor of Pennsylvania?
Because he's too impressive. That's why.
So, and then you look at Tim Walz's record and you think, okay, this guy's extremely liberal. And I, not living there, you guys know much better than I do, but from the outside looking in, from other states looking in, here's a guy who sat passively by while your city burned and did not step in to stop it, which he could have.
And I didn't know this. And Don and Tim, maybe you did. I just found this out recently, and I don't think this is campaign spin, but I always thought that Jacob Fry didn't call Walz and ask for help, but it was actually the opposite. Fry called for help right away, and Walz refused. I didn't know that.
I learned that also. I thought it was the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
However, there is an excuse for that, and we found that out tonight. We now found out that our governor is now to be aptly named Governor Knucklehead. because he came up with the name
Self-professed.
himself, and he is going to wear that mantle for the rest of the time that he's governor.
You're right. He
Whether
is.
it's a few months or whether it's another couple of years, Governor Knucklehead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the fact that, I mean, I have to say, I have to give him props. He admitted the fact, I don't know if you want to call it a lie or a misstatement. He admitted the fact that the thing about China wasn't true. So,
Well, what
I mean,
could he do?
It took him 3 minutes, but
Yeah, that
What,
was
Larry?
no way out of that. No way
Larry,
out.
what did you say, Larry?
I said, what could he do?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it's already been proven, established.
yeah.
Is he going to stand up there and lie about it now?
Yeah, he could have done. Yeah, well, he could have. He could have
Well, he
actually
could have.
denied it
Yeah.
altogether, but he didn't. You know.
He tried to worm out of it, and he never really addressed it or admitted it. He tried to worm out of it, and I will say this: his worming was, he did pretty good at that. But still,
Yes, he did. That's true.
He got an A for. Well, he tried to worm out of it, and to her credit, the moderator kind of pushed on. She said,
Yeah.
"Well, come on, did you lie or not?"
Yeah.
And that's when he said, "Yeah."
I know they weren't. The moderators weren't totally in the tank. That's true. You know.
Man.
I mentioned the fact too. At some point, they actually cut his mic too, and there's some back and forth. So
Yes.
Tim, I'm dying to hear from you because of your wisdom.
Well, I think that a curse has fallen upon the land. The Jabberites and the Gabberites have come upon us tonight, and they have spewed out their gabber, and they have spewed out their gibber, and we are fallen into the hellfires of their spittle. I didn't watch most of it. I probably wouldn't have watched it even if I was home. I don't care what these guys say. They're speaking, this has all been fed to them ahead of time, and they've practiced all this stuff, and that,
Hey Tim,
I don't think it's going to make any fucking difference.
Tim, I've never got a chance to ask you, when you were actually running for president, before you folded your campaign, you hadn't actually selected a vice president. Did you know who you're going to select? I hope I don't put on you on spot, but.
Well, no, I didn't. And, if things had got rolling in a timely fashion and I, got to that point, I would have, I might have chosen somebody and I might not. I did think about it, and I thought, I'm running for this office, and I'm not necessarily going to drag anybody along with me. I don't know who would have been interested in doing it.
Larry
anyway,
would have
Jesse Ventura's not real busy these days.
well, yeah, but that's not.
And he was also governor of Minnesota.
and like I said, I think it's a useless office. So, I would have been willing that whoever placed second in the election could have been vice president, like they did it originally under the Constitution. So, no, I didn't have anybody in mind, and didn't really place much importance on it.
So did you guys think that there was any, I don't know, bias is not the right word here, or did the ladies put too much emphasis on the abortion issue?
Well, who knew that they weren't going to make hay out of that, and I think that the Vance seemed to be pretty prepared for pretty much anything that they were going to throw at him. The abortion thing, he was able to put a finer point on the whole very, very late term abortion thing that's part of Minnesota. They didn't bring up any trans stuff, but I think it came and went. I think it came.
The thing that actually bothered me about that whole exchange, did you guys notice this? And it was because it was what wasn't said. Everyone talks about, Walz went on and on about the rights of women. Nobody talked about the rights of unborn babies.
No. Exactly.
No. Well, they never do. They never do.
And I just want to say, from my standpoint, fetuses aren't citizens. Until it can move and talk on its own, it doesn't exist. But the abortion issue, I wasn't around for that part of it, but it's a non-issue. The Supreme Court has said that the federal government doesn't have any authority in this matter.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a done issue. If Congress were to pass some kind of legislation, it should immediately go to the Supreme Court, where they would say, we've already decided on this.
Right.
Congress doesn't have the authority, and we're
Well,
done with it.
Tim, the part you missed is that Walz went on and on about the fact, because Vance brought up, it's a state's issue, and different states have ruled different things. And Walz went on about this thing about there's this woman born in Georgia. She had to go to North Carolina for an abortion, and she died because she had to go to she had to travel. And it's like blah 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 blah. And I agree with. I don't know. I personally agree with you. I don't think it's a big issue. I really don't. I don't think there's a small number of women who care about this deeply. But the fact of the matter is, it's not illegal. So
Yeah.
it's just,
Right.
Well, the whole
Okay.
thing, women,
Go ahead.
oh, well, I'm just going to say, women's rights and women's, it's like the same rights as all citizens. They try to make it another special case kind of thing. And of course, you can always bring up the most extreme example of something, and that's not what
Yeah.
reasonable people set standards by. You don't go to one extreme or the other to set your standard.
Well, this was the same story that Kamala brought up when she was having a debate. So it's like they have two stories that they bring up, and when Kamala tells it, she tells it better because she gets into the smoke. Because how can you do that? She does the head shake and with the hands and all this. So she she starts to get that whiny cry voice. So Walz didn't milk it quite as much as Harris's, but it literally was the same two stories,
Yeah.
which goes to show you that the incidence of the kind of abortions that they are talking about are very low. We're not talking. They refuse to talk about the fact that the vast majority of the abortions are abortions of convenience, and they don't want to say that.
Right.
So
Abortion and women's health are two separate, different issues.
right.
Okay. Women have the right to health care. Nobody has ever taken that away. Nobody has. Roe v. Wade did not take away the women's right to health care. We're talking about abortion, one single procedure, not women's health. And they use that and they throw that out as we're trying to take away women's right to health care. No,
Right.
Nobody's talking about women's rights to health care.
Exactly.
We're talking about
It's-
abortion. Okay.
Right. It's
Now,
whoever
you can have
controls the language.
different stands on that. Me personally, when you have a woman has another body growing inside of her, that is still a human body. Okay. Now, does she have the right to kill another human body? Does she have the right to make that decision? Okay. If it endangers her life, then there's that option is there. Okay. Rape and incest. Yeah, I can understand that argument. Okay. But a baby is viable at 5 months inside the womb. Okay. It can be born and it can live. So the argument that Trump's making is after 5 months, it should not be legal if it's not a danger to the woman's life.
yeah.
Our Constitution says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to all persons, and that baby is a person when it is viable for life outside the womb. That's my feeling. That's my perception of it.
Larry,
But
I
I
gotta
hate
agree
this thing about health care.
I gotta
Women's
agree with
right
you
to
totally.
health care. That is not the argument. That is not the debate.
That what you just said seems just to me it's the most reasonable thing. I mean, I don't see how anybody could debate the reasonableness of that, even if you're for abortion. You know, okay, you've had four months to carry a baby. You know, it's like if you can't decide you want an abortion in like 13 weeks, it's like, well, screw you. You know,
Well, to put an even finer point on what Larry was saying, what he was really talking about there was how people control an argument by controlling the language.
yeah,
We have had the term health insurance turn into health care
yeah,
in the same way that illegal alien has become migrant,
yes,
Yeah.
right.
right? And those are
Right.
the two separate things. And I'll tell you what, you might have missed this, Tim, but God bless Vance for actually using the term illegal alien, not once, not twice, but 3 times. He hammered that difference home. And I appreciated the fact that he was willing to do that. He didn't go namby-pamby and use the language of the left. He
Yeah.
used the language that I won't even call it the language of the right. It was the language that's been around for a long time until the left got a hold of it.
Right.
And I've always said whoever controls the language controls the issue. And that is what the left has been so good at up until recently. And this is our last shot, I think, for a presumable, foreseeable future where if Trump wins, I think it can be the beginning of people being able to speak much more plainly, and when they speak, they can do the whole thing with the little accordion, the invisible Trump accordion that he uses.
Yeah,
I
right.
think we should all speak this way.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, right.
if Harris gets in, she's already trying to stop you from being able to speak what you
Yeah.
want to.
Period.
Uh,
Yes.
So, I mean, we're already seeing the future of what could be under Harris Walz presidency. They're going to shut down our ability to have conversations here, to speak what we want to, without fear of the police kicking in your door and hauling you off, never to be seen again, which is what happened in Venezuela and Cuba and all these other countries that are doing exactly the same thing
Yeah.
that she is doing.
Right.
Yeah, but I gotta say that, Trump is also talking about pulling licenses from the news organizations and doing all this kind of shit. I'm not here as a Trump supporter because I don't like Trump in any fashion. I'm here as just a commentator on what's going on in government and where we're heading. And I think with either one of these people, we're going to have some kind of really bad trouble. The Harris thing is going to be an economic nightmare, as well as these other attempts to control people's speech, which is hard to do with 330 million people using social media. But Trump was also, he's got more angry, since Biden dropped out and Harris came on, being challenged by a woman, I think, pinched his sack in a way that's made him really pissed off. But he's talked all kind of shit too. So I think with either one of these people, I think we've got, whether it was Biden or Harris or Trump, I think we've got one of the worst choices in the history of the country, and which again goes back to my big thing is the parties are a problem. The parties are to blame for putting these people up and for having a stranglehold on what should be a free and open election process that gets us down to where we've got the lowest common denominator going for the highest office in the land.
And I appreciate what you said, Tim, but I'm telling you this, if Trump wins, the next day I'm buying stock. I'm buying stock in a lot of companies
Well, I
because
have to tell you,
things
that
are
actually
gonna
occurred to me.
go way up.
if and when he's declared the winner, the next day the stock market will just skyrocket.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if she wins, you're going to see a sell-off like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so here's what I found out in a conversation with my financial advisor, because every once in a while we get around to politics and, what if this, what if that. And so let's say that Kamala wins and we manage to hold Congress and pick up the Senate. That's usually the best balance for Wall Street, because apparently what this fellow told me is that what Wall Street loves more than anything is gridlock,
Yeah.
because nothing happens and
Right.
nothing disrupts the market. So it'll be interesting to test your theory, Larry, if Trump wins and he takes a bunch of people in the Republican Party onto on his coattails and gets another supermajority again, because I don't remember what happened, but I don't remember anything bad happening to the on Wall Street his first 2 years where he had the supermajority.
Right.
I don't remember anything bad, nor do I remember anything particularly bad when Obama had the, and I'm just talking as far as Wall Street, when Obama had the supermajority. So I'm wondering if what he said was really accurate, just based on past history. So now,
Well,
I'm
the
sorry. Go ahead.
first time that Trump went in, he was an unknown commodity. He said what he was going to do, but they didn't know that he could do it. It's like JD said. He wasn't a supporter because he was listening to everybody else put down Trump. But Trump got in and he did it. He knows how to do it. He's already proven that. He knows what to do to make things better. Now, if he gets in, we know what he's going to do. The markets know what he can do because he's already done it. So yeah, it's going to skyrocket if he gets in. I
Well, I already
firmly
know.
believe.
so then let me ask Tim what he thinks. Are we at a point where anything can be done about spending? Have we reached the point of critical mass, and it just doesn't even matter if Jesus Christ came and became president? I mean, are we at a point now where we cannot cut our spending enough to make any kind of a real difference?
Well, I tell you, anecdotally, I'm 72 years old, and all my life, the cost of it, prices have gone up. I never, there are seasonal fluctuations in prices in some objects, but when prices reach a certain level, they don't ever come down. So the prices that have jumped drastically over the past 4 years might come down a little bit, but probably not very much. If Trump institutes his across-the-board tariffs, the prices are going to go up even higher. I know the part of the logic is, well, we'll stimulate people buying American products, but the sad truth is most products aren't made in America, and American manufacturing isn't set up to take that over. What would be better is to incentivize, manufacturing here to do some things. And the best thing would be if America became a leader in innovation again. We make it
Right.
first, and we make it best, and we do it that way. Economically speaking, stuff might go up on Wall Street, but I think massive tariffs, if they're invoked, will have an impact on pricing. That'll have an impact on the stock market. And Vance, I heard him say something tonight about penalties for people who ship jobs overseas. I don't exactly know how that will work. Most of the jobs have already gone overseas that are going overseas, and that's been happening since the 60s. And that didn't happen because of anything government was doing. It wasn't heavy regulation. It was more cheaper labor because of the unions, and also cheaper access to raw materials in those places. So from an economic standpoint, I think we're going to be pretty much in the same tight. I don't know what can be done that would dramatically affect any of this stuff. And short of a government price freeze on everything to allow U.S. manufacturing to catch up.
So what I was really talking about was like the national debt. That's what I'm really talking about. Is there any way to cut government spending? I should have been clearer. Government spending to make a difference in, and bring down the debt, because presumably, right, in theory, that's the whole reason for having the supermajority. If people were to actually behave responsibly in the government, that they would work together to bring spending costs down, which is
Larry knows the answer to this.
Yeah, what you're talking about, Don, is it's a war, it's a battle. You've got the legislature, the House and the Senate, and they get elected on how much money they can send to this one, that one, or the other one, how much money they can send home. That in itself is a battle,
right.
And it's like Trump has kept us out of wars. When he was there, holding their feet to the fire to require them to curtail spending, to cut government regulators to save a tremendous amount of money. If you remember, when he came in, he cut regulators, the government, 10% across the board, which translates into not having to spend that money. It's still in the coffers. So he's got a battle with Congress, and he's going to have to fight that battle just like he fights the battles across the world.
Yeah.
We know from history the two times when we have huge increases in revenue to the government funds grew exponentially to pay off the debt was Reagan and Trump. Their tax cuts increased the funds into the coffers of the government.
It wasn't Clinton per se, but Clinton did balance the budget. The annual.
He balanced the budget, but
Yeah.
Take California, who had a surplus, and now they don't.
Minnesota, they have a huge surplus, and now we don't.
Right, and you go to Florida, who was heavily in debt, and now they're not. So, yes, the governors of states and the president of the country has a huge influence on the outstanding debt. But you have to have Congress. Congress holds the purse strings. You have to hold their feet to the fire and call them when they're spending excess money. That was the whole thing about this border bill, was the huge amount of money that was going to things other than the border. And there was tons and tons of money in there that was going to be wasted and sent different places. And that's why Trump called and said, hey, guys, don't do this. Okay? Because you're not going to fix the problem. All you're doing is getting more money so you can spend somewhere else.
I had Murray Sabrin on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I had him on because I don't know if you guys know this. In the last month, two things happened. First of all, the interest on the national debt, the annual interest hit $1 trillion. And for the first time since World War II, at the end of World War II, other than that, this has never even come close. The national debt has now come to 100% of the gross national product of GDP.
Right.
You know,
Both
those things happen.
It takes somebody who knows how to balance books and how to run a company to step in there and fix this problem. And I have forever been anti-political person to sit in the seat in the White House. You don't want a politician. Forget politicians. Politicians are not CEOs. And you need a CEO in the White House, whoever it is,
Yeah.
or somebody that knows how to run a company, how to run the country, how to manage the income and the expenses to fix the problem. You can't take someone who's never done anything except worked on the government payroll to step into the White House. They don't know how to do that.
No,
Period.
Never had to make a product and stuff. You know,
No.
I was always responsible for increasing production without increasing costs, and in fact,
Correct.
expected to bring costs down in whatever it was, whatever field I was working in. And you know, the federal government could be cut back dramatically. You get rid of the Department of Education. You take some of these other departments and you combine them into one, because there's so much duplication of effort in there, and so
Right.
just strip all that kind of stuff out. So bringing the cost of government down, there is a way to do that, and
Yes.
it's going to take some kind of fight, because all of these programs, all of these departments, divisions, agencies, bureaus, and so on in the government are somebody's pork barrel legislation. And Larry brought up a point that it just astounds me that time after time these people put out some kind of legislation, and it's stuffed with so many things that have nothing to do with the point of that legislation, but every one of them costs money. And they're in there because somebody's sending something, back to Arkansas or back to Colorado, back to wherever the hell, in some kind of, program or manufacturing or business, whatever. And, the one thing to do in a case like that is you look at this thing coming in and say, well, these parts are good, but these other parts are no good. I'm not going to sign it until these parts are gone. And you make
So is it
it
time to start? I'm sorry, but is it time then to start bringing back the conversation about the line item veto?
Definitely.
Because that's what
Absolutely.
you're describing, right?
Yeah, it has to happen, because it is such a common practice. And they get, why do they do people all this stuff in here? Well, they get away with it.
Right.
And when you wait till the night before the government shutdown to put the bill out there that's going to keep the government running, and it's crammed with all this other stuff, that is intentional to force all that stuff through without anybody looking at it or talking about it or objecting to
Right.
it.
Right.
And
So,
we've got to have term limits along with that.
well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That
You know
would
when
be-
all
that
you
would
know
be
when all this
astonishing.
started, don't you?
When's that, Larry?
Yeah, in the 1780s.
Yeah.
I mean, from the first Congress, there was graft and illegal theft of government money, and it started from the very, very beginning. I don't know that we'll completely get away from it, but
And,
Yeah.
well, we've always been in debt too, from the very beginning of the country.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point, Tim. I asked Murray Sabrin about that. Have we ever paid down any of the national debt? And he said, yeah, Andrew Jackson. So that is about what, maybe 1814 or something like that. He actually eliminated it. He actually got rid of the national debt at that time, but that's the only time it ever happened.
1820s, and he came in and he pretty much ignored the cabinet that existed at the time, ignored all those departments. He had his own advisors, and he pretty much didn't have whole sections of government spending any money. which is how he was able to do that. And that's
Yeah.
what you need to do now, just eliminate. You could cut half of there are 15 departments, and those departments have anywhere from 3 to 35 subgroups underneath them. You could cut all that mass down by half. The government would run more efficiently, cost even less than half as much because it would be more efficient on top of being less costly.
Well, and this is like, I don't know if you guys know this, there's like 60 different national intelligence agencies, and they basically, they play rivals off each other. So not only do they not communicate, they like, in many cases, they hate each other.
Oh my God.
What is the point of this? It's like, and then they wonder why, this thing about, Trump, the guy on the roof in Butler, Pennsylvania. Well, of course something broke down. These people can't communicate constantly, even if they want to, and usually they don't even want to. So it's like, shit's going to happen.
Well, all of these agencies, and just like the FBI and the Secret Service, over a period of time, you get top heavy with the upper echelon, and so you've got 100 different bureaucrats overseeing this group of 20 people actually on the ground.
You have an
And that's where all the money
undersecretary to the undersecretary to the deputy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And then well, they're complaining that they don't have enough people on the ground, field people to do the job. We'll kick some of those other people out of the office and send them out.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with public schools. You've got a principal and how many vice principals?
Yeah,
yes,
really.
Yes.
Right? There's like
Don,
an entire
you are so
staff
right.
of vice principal. So you've got the macro and you've got the micro of it. And somehow we have to have a leader who develops a consciousness of being able to do things well, but in a leaner setting.
Yeah.
Everything, whether it's government or that,
To Larry's point, Larry says, we need to see somebody who's been not in politics to do it. And Tim, I will point out that if you won the presidency, you would get the same shit as Donald Trump because, all right, Trump is a wacky personality, no doubt. But the primary objection to him is he was not in the political club, and you aren't either, and they'd treat you the exact same way.
Well, they can treat me the same way, but I would react differently to how they do it.
Well, you just kill them, that's all.
Well, no, but when I streamlined things, I wasn't a popular person, but I did it. There's an approach that you can take that silences any legitimate complaint. And so, you pare these people down. One thing everybody talks about day one, like you've only got one day to get all this shit.
Yeah.
You don't have 4 years to work on it. But one thing on day one is you get rid of the Federal Employees Union. Whatever it's called. And, so, because these unions protect, they've got dues paying members. And the more members they've got, the better off they are. And the standard is set by the lowest common denominator. The least performer is protected. The best performer doesn't stand out. So you get rid of that. You get rid of the people who don't perform. You keep the people who do perform, and you get rid of, like Larry said, and this is the problem in almost every major corporation. You get rid of that bulk of upper level management that doesn't do anything. You guys remember a few years back when the new guy came in at Target, and they had 13,000 employees, and I don't think that included the people who worked in the stores. Maybe it included the people who worked in the stores, but anyway, 13,000 employees. They got rid of 4,000 of them, and Target still, still sells clothes and shoes and toys and whatever. They have 4,000 people stuck in the middle that they didn't need. Another is Best Buy, which is also located here. A guy came in, this was maybe 10 years ago, and the first thing they did was they chopped about 4,000 people out of that middle management thing. So, in government, that's what you got to do. But you have to be strategic and you have to be very detailed about that. Trump is not a detail guy. He's the big picture guy. And he needs to have people working for him who are the detail guys who will go out and take care of that stuff, and trim it down. Hand these guys the scissors.
To that point, then his kind of interestingly developing relation with Elon Musk, who, if you remember, when he bought Twitter, what was one of the first things he did? He walked in there. He said, "You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You stay. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You stay." And he got rid of the redundancies. And he says, "There's absolutely no reason why I need 4,000 people in this building," or whatever absurd number it was.
Oh, I knew people who were programming at Twitter, and they were so overstaffed. It was mind-boggling.
I think everything was overstaffed. That was after the time. Remember when Starbucks closed 600 stores and nobody noticed?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The only reason
we used to have 2 on every block. Well, there's and especially in the tech world, it seems like they think the more people they have, the better it is. But Jim knows about writing code and doing all that kind of stuff. If you've got 100 people doing what 10 people can do, you've got 90 chances of mistakes happening that nobody sees until the airplanes start falling out of the sky.
Right.
So in the federal government, it's like everything is slow, nothing moves. We had a conversation today about a permit we were trying to get from the state because we have in Minnesota something called charitable gambling, where charitable organizations can have small-time gambling operations and bars and restaurants and stuff. And it took 4 months to get a permit through. And this is something that we've done for years, and we do other locations. This is a new location. They were eager for us to get started. We were eager to get started. Took them 4 months. And when they finally, what it came down to was it was sitting on some deputy vice assistant junior clerk's desk, and they had to wait for their training manager to okay it. And when our guy said, "Well, why don't you walk over to where the training manager is and get in front of him?" They say, "Oh, it doesn't work that way."
Yeah.
I can't get out of my chair, kind of thing. And that's state government. The federal government's 100 times worse than that.
Right.
So it can be trimmed, but it's going to take a group of people who know how to do that and are consistently applying that.
There's currently 4 million non-military people who work in the federal government of the United States, and I swear to God, you get rid of 50% of them tomorrow, and nobody would notice a thing different.
That's right.
Nothing would happen. And I don't know if you guys know this too. In the last 3.5 years since Biden became president, all those stupid unemployment figures they cite. One, I love the burritos. I love it. And I love the Mandarin. It's particularly good. Oh, Jesus, Tammy, you broke my train of thought, and I can't know what I'm talking about. I'm old. I'm an old bastard. Don't you understand? All right. I was going to say that. Yes, I do. 25% of all the people, the new job openings in the last 3.5 years have been with the federal government. 25% of them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
by the
and
way, I
you're-
am going to have a drink after this because we're changing the show, but I'll talk about that later. So
Yeah, and that's the thing with the unemployment rates and the job rates. I mean, what was the correction this last time? 800,000
yeah,
to run.
818,000.
Okay,
Right.
how do you make that kind of mistake
I
with
know. No,
not
geez,
being
I
on
wonder.
purpose?
How do
Okay.
you? And then you notice
I-
all the mistakes are always in their favor. Do you
yeah.
notice that? It's like, God, I don't understand. What a coincidence.
I will make one criticism of Trump that I have had when he walked into the White House the first time. I think he was too timid to step in and do what he knew needed to be done. He wanted to get along. He wanted to work together, and so he didn't make the drastic cuts and things that he should have.
Yes, right.
Right.
And now he can, and it needs to be done. And I think it's an outstanding idea to have Elon Musk to come in and evaluate the efficiency of the government.
Yeah.
Well, what is it that they
That's
always say? What do they always say about the person you have the most to fear is an old man with nothing to lose?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, and that's I
Well,
went into
Yeah,
places.
he doesn't have to worry about re-election this time. He's going to come
Yeah.
in and fix
Right.
That's
fix
one
this
of the
thing.
reasons Larry scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Tim,
Well,
what?
that's what I was tasked to do in places. That I went from one place to another to do the stuff, and it wasn't to make friends or to. I'd learned a long time ago that you can't run things and be friends with all the people who work there. You can be civil and you can be polite, and it can be pleasant, but you can't be pals. And
You got to cut the fat. You got to
yeah.
cut the fat. I mean, if you're going to
Exactly.
stay in business, you have to cut the fat, and government needs to be run like a business.
All right,
And you
Yeah.
guys.
only got one person to do that.
We're 5 weeks away from the election today. You guys have any predictions at all? Let's go around the horn. Hey, Larry, what do you think?
Trump wins in a landslide.
Don Zorro?
I don't know about a landslide, but I see Trump winning.
Well, I remember the last time we were all together, somebody saying that when RFK Jr. stepped out of the race and endorsed Trump, that Trump was going to go about 10 points in the polls, and he didn't go up any points in the polls, and and in fact, Kennedy saying, "Put me back on the ballot in New York." And others.
I voted here yesterday in Minnesota, and Robert F. Kennedy is on the ballot.
Yeah, he's still on the ballot. I think it's too close. I don't see Trump being really far ahead. His noise appeals to his base, but his base he already has. His base is very tight. And outside of that base, I don't know that noise is resonating. Harris and the Biden administration, it's not a popular group, but I just say it's too close to call.
Interesting. I basically think that Trump will at least win the Electoral College, but he might not win the popular vote. I think that might happen again.
2016 all over again.
Yeah, matter of fact, I mean, all the projections I've seen is that he might win the Electoral College handily, but still, it's going to be the actual.
I disagree. I think there's too much scrutiny on the polling places.
Yeah.
This time around, with what's happened in the last two elections, two elections. I think there's way too much scrutiny on the polls for all of the crooked ballots to come in like they did.
And Larry, I don't know if you guys watched the Gutfeld show, but Tyrus has been very vocal about the fact that he thinks it's going to be almost a landslide because he thinks there's and this is kind of like the Jesse Ventura election that happened in Minnesota. I can't remember what year that was. Was it 98 or something like that? That there's going to be a whole bunch of people who basically aren't polled, don't want to talk to the pollers, and mostly men who are going to flock to the polls and vote and leave. And I think he might be onto something. That might happen. He's very insistent on this.
Yeah,
So.
I think he's right because you're seeing the undecided or the independent voters are quickly flocking to Trump. even the a lot of Democrats have said I've voted for Democrat all my life, but not this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think most of those just plain won't vote, which is fine. That's fine.
You're seeing a lot of enthusiasm in formerly Democratic voters flocking to the Republican side this time.
Yeah. Also,
That's-
there's another thing too, and this has kind of got lost in the news. Supposedly, for the first time in like 16 years, more Republicans are registered to vote than Democrats.
Yeah. Hey,
that
how
too.
about this guy, Scott Pressler? Do you know who this is?
Well, this really rings a bell, but I can't.
Okay,
trace-
so Scott Pressler goes under a Twitter handle called The Persistence. And this guy he's this very long-haired gay guy who is Republican and has gone about the task of registering voters everywhere that he can. And he managed to actually flip a county by virtue of the number of registered voters. He got a place that was registered primarily blue, and he got in there, and just by knocking on doors, by holding events, he managed to register a bunch of people red, to the point where there are now more red voters in this county that had been predominantly blue now.
Yeah.
And he's been doing this all over the country. He really came to light in 2020, and even though Trump lost, he made a difference in terms of just getting people to try and vote. But this time he's just been wildly successful, and I've been following him on Twitter for quite a while, for the last 5 years or so. And I swear, if there was anybody who should be the leader or the president of the RNC, it should be this guy. He actually does what a leader is supposed to do. I have a lot of admiration. His name is Scott Pressler.
Yeah,
Scott
I've heard of
Pressler.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's a
I
very
don't
interesting
quit,
figure.
so.
But this is not a isolated case. I mean, in many states around the country, Republican registrations are up hugely.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, think for that reason alone, Trump's going to win. You know?
Well,
I was a Republican chairman of the county party over here in the edge of Kansas in 98 to 2002. And it was a very heavily predominant Democrat area. And a lot of the people that I knew that were kids that were coming out of high school have kind of taken over. And it is a very predominant Republican county now. It's switched in 20 years.
Yeah.
now here's the question. So who are the Muslims going to vote for? Because it's like they can't deal with Trump, and they can't deal
Harris.
with the craziness
Yeah.
in the Democrats. It's
I
like
don't know.
they all this stuff with the trans and all of this is big issue for them, and that's what the Democrats are all about. And yet I don't know if they can bring themselves to vote for the bad orange man. So,
I think a lot of them will just stay home.
that's what I'm talking about.
Let's look at the Hispanic vote. Those that are
Right.
citizens,
Right.
are going to
Right.
vote for Trump. Now, it's growing and growing. Well, when you move here, I don't care what your preference was before, but when you move here and you live here a while, and the things that are important to all of us in the country now become important to them, they have a little different way of thinking. And I think that's what you're seeing with Hispanics and a lot of other groups, that minorities.
Yeah.
So-
And
Isn't it amazing how well the Democrats have miscalculated this? They thought
oh yeah,
that the legal Hispanic citizenship of the U.S. would support the illegal Hispanic immigrants, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
And then I think the coup de grace here has to be the black male vote, because Kamala reminds them way too much of women that they've dated.
That's right.
So
That's
they're
right.
just going. I ain't voting for
You were
that.
so right. I know. They don't. They don't want. They don't want to deal with that.
I went out with that bitch a long time ago. Nah, I ain't doing that again.
Well, they have finally, which surprises me, but the black support for Trump, the black has finally understood that the Democrats promise them everything every 4 years and give them nothing, and Trump actually did something for them. So and this economy, it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy. The economy is going to win Trump the White House.
I just find it still amazing that Walz tonight, especially at the end, but during the debate, he's basically saying, well, Kamala Harris is an agent of change. Well, no, she isn't. She's been there for 4 years. What the hell?
He's not incorrect, but the change that she's going to bring, I don't think anybody's going to like,
Right, negative,
even
right.
those that support her.
Right. All right, Don, do you have a joke for us this evening?
You know what? No, I'm tapped out unless you give me a
Okay.
a
Well, no, if you're
subject.
tapped out, I'm going to talk because I've told you guys this. So, all right, for those of you who are watching, we're taking a week off. We're coming back on Wednesday, October 9th, and when we come back, the show is going to look and sound completely different. So, as much as stuff can look and sound different, but it is. So, we're going from primarily a video format to mostly an audio format. So,
Do I have
that's
to
what
wear
we're
a
doing.
tie?
No, because
Okay.
no one will see you ever again. Now, I've told you guys this, I'm talking inside baseball now, but when we do these panel shows, we still might do them on video, but we'll just, the public isn't going to see the video. So,
well.
God,
just so we
I
can
can be
look, we can
naked
look at each
again.
other. So,
Yeah.
so Don, you won't have to wear your getup anymore. Maybe you want to. I don't know. Maybe that makes you excited. I don't know.
I never take it off.
And Tim, you don't have to wear your getup anymore.
Yeah, well, this means that I will continue not to wear pants when I do this.
You're gonna go all Brian Stelter on us now.
Yeah. Yeah, I put pants on. I just want to tell you guys that. So anyway, so we're going to be gone for a week. So,
Right.
I want to thank you guys a lot. This is
All right,
I want to point out this is our 162nd show. So,
There you go.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask you guys before we go. I was in a elementary school last week for 3 days, doing vision screening for kids, and this came up. I don't know how. I guess the setting brought it up, but someone asked me, "What do you call a teacher who will not fart in public?" A
I don't know.
private tutor.
A what?
A private tutor. So since next time,
Yes.
Mr.
Conaway
Sorrell,
picks up the slack. All right.
please have a real joke.
Well, I will leave you then with one thing, a limerick, because it's St. Patrick's Day somewhere, so I'll do
All right.
limerick.
Okay.
A young baritone from Havana, while singing, slipped on a banana. He was ill for a year, then resumed his career as a promising lyric soprano.
Well, you amused Larry. You got anything, Larry? You got a joke?
No, I can't keep up with these two.
I got a joke. Kamala Harris is vice president. There you go. That's
There
my
you go.
joke.
That's a joke.
There you go.
Yeah, that's my joke. Gentlemen,
Okay.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The public appreciates it. Everybody loves watching you guys. So I'm Jim Peters. So we'll be back on Wednesday, October 9th. Remember, our guest that night will be Jeff Meyer. So because I'm getting my friends involved here, and the following night, guest will be Don Zorro, so I can get the bugs out of the system. So no offense, Don, but yeah, I'm experimenting on you. So yeah, and we'll
Okay.
and you know what, Larry? I gotta tell you about this. Do you realize that here at the 21st century, 50 years ago, if you talked about UFOs, people thought you were nuts. Now, I talk about UFOs all the time. People buy it. But I talk about Bigfoot. People think you're nuts. Have you noticed this?
Oh yeah.
I find this just kind of amazing.
I spoke at a
It's like-
Bigfoot conference Saturday, but and this is the crazy thing about it. There's thousands of people have visual eyesight
Yeah.
and see these things every year. and and everybody said, "Oh well, that's crazy." I'm sorry. If you were standing by the highway and you saw a truck go by, and you turn around and told me that I just saw a truck go by, and I would call you a liar, that's kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
that's what's going on. But yeah, they are a mammal that science has not yet figured out how to classify.
Yeah. Right. I don't have any trouble with that. I don't. A lot of people do. I find it just amazing. So there are people that'll buy the extraterrestrials, but they won't buy Bigfoot. And you'd think it'd be the opposite. You really would. I mean,
Yeah, you would.
Yeah,
Well, I just want to know how they vote. If you figure that out, and
Yeah, figure that one out. Yeah.
that's funny, Don. That amused me. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. The show's done. I really appreciate it. If you're watching, we'll see you on Wednesday, October 9th, okay? So
Okay.
All right.
you guys take care. All
See ya.
right. Good night.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.